There you go.
What up, family? How are you?
I'm good, Mr. Just Blaze. How are you, sir?
No complaints, brother.
Are you in your home studio? Did I interrupt your creative process?
Oh no, not at all. I was handling some family stuff. Pardon my lateness. We had an issue with the baby real quick, so I had to handle that.
Well,
And
I appreciate you joining me, man.
no, I
Like,
appreciate you asking me to come through.
man, I was saying earlier when I first started doing this podcast, I'm gonna have to go back and re-record it because I wasn't recording myself, but the video was on. I was saying I don't understand why after 20 years of success that you've had in this business, when people name the greatest hip hop producers of all time, it's always Pharrell, it's always Timbaland, it's always Swiss Beats. Sometimes they throw Teddy Riley in there. We give Teddy props because he really kind of started his career as a producer, as a hip hop
Right.
producer before he really moved on. And I don't hear Just Blaze a lot, and I'm not understanding why that is. Why do you think it is?
Oh, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Um,
Does it
for
bother you?
no, no, not really. I never did this for the fame or the accolades. And in my experience, you know, I do get mentioned. So I'm just happy to be. Here's my attitude. I'm happy to be here, right? You think about it. The fact that you said that I get or that I've done this for 20 plus years, right? Most of us as producers, many producers don't even get um 5 years,
True.
much less 20 plus. Like I had major records in 1999. I had major records in 2005. I had major records in 2011. I still work on major projects in 2020 or 21 now. I'm probably what I'm working. One of the projects that I'm working on now, which I can only speak about in a limited capacity, is probably bigger than any of the rap stuff that I've done before put together. So I can't be mad at that.
Mhm.
It's for me. It's just about being able to get paid to do what I love to do, um, and make a living out of it.
Yeah.
That's all that really matters to
Isn't
me.
that beautiful, brother?
It's an amazing feeling, and I'm sure you can identify. But you can
I
just
can definitely identify with that. As long as you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Somebody told me.
exactly, and I know that's a cliche saying, but it really is true. Like I've never had a job, you know, even before I was making music. Like when I was, my first place of employment, like when I was 12, I was a summer camp counselor. Um, but I was going on trips every day and watching kids.
Right.
When I worked in a mall at Aeropostale, um, this was during their quote unquote glory days, in 1993, 94, when it was the coolest thing to be wearing next to uh, Polo or Tommy, right? So I worked in a mall, got to get clothes at 80% off, and it was the freshest clothes that was out.
Right.
All I had to do was take some people's money and put it in the register, or and fold some jeans. You know, from there I started DJing at a roller skating rink, and from there I was making music. Like I've never really had a job.
Yeah. What was that hip hop scene and music scene like growing up in Paterson, New Jersey?
Um, that's a loaded question. I would say for me personally, you know, from the perspective of looking back at this point, um, you know, we had places like the rink, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Absolutely.
We had Skaters World, which you might be familiar with. I DJ'd at both. One of the greatest things for me looking back was uh the fact that you had this interesting marriage of worlds, because you had hip hop, which was happening, but then you also had house music, which was big around our way. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with that and thinking that that was normal. And then as you travel, as you explore different cultures in different cities, you realize that that really wasn't the norm outside of where we came from. Like, we were kind of in our own bubble, you know. But especially in terms of hip hop, you know, there was just so much good music coming out at the time, and it was still very much like the Wild Wild West. Um, Very much like the Wild West in terms of just, you know, like being able to travel within 10 minutes and seeing running into YZ, running into Queen Latifah, running into Redman, running into Lords of the Underground. You know, as a kid, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things that I always say made it very um it, getting older, you know, around that time in the mid 90s, it humanized it for me, and um made me or gave me an awareness that I didn't have as a child. In other words, like those run-ins that I had when I was 16, 17, 18, DJing at open mics or DJing at certain places and playing my own beats. For example, at an open mic, you know, and the artifacts being like, yo, put that beat back on. You know, when they're emceeing at an open mic and it happens to be my beat,
Right.
you know, and me being like, oh, like, this is for real. Like these aren't people that these aren't just the superheroes that you see on TV or on an album cover or you know in the back of a in the back of a magazine or on the cover of a magazine. These are actual real people, and seeing them as real people and seeing them as I didn't see them as peers because obviously I was nobody at the time, but seeing them as real people made it humanized it for me to a point where I realized, yo, I can probably really do this.
Yeah. Patterson is known as a rough and tumble part of New Jersey. I've been to Patterson many
Well,
times. Big shout out to everybody in Patterson, always showing me love. Were you DJing? You said you were a DJ at the rink for a while.
mhm.
Who inspired you to become a DJ?
Bro, I've been DJing since I could walk, and I don't mean that jokingly. Like my mom has pictures of me um, DJing at my own first birthday party.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Nobody can really put their finger on it, like, you know, in terms of where it came from, in terms of the early inspiration. But what I can say is that, you know, having an older cousin who was 7 or 8 years older than me, you know, he, he introduced me to the concept or the idea of mixed show radio. You know, like I'm not even really that old, but I can remember. Like I'm 43,
Mm-hmm.
right? But relatively speaking, I'm not even that old. But like I remember hearing the Showstopper being premiered on the radio for the first time. Nobody else in my age group that I went to school with would even know what the hell I'm talking about.
Right.
But
That was
like
Salt and Pepper's first record, the diss record to Slick Rick and
right, but like I remember when it was played for the first time. I
yeah.
remember, you know, when Soul to Soul Back to Life, the acapella version was premiered for the first time when Red Alert played it. You know, like I was the kid who had the tape of Nice and Smooth performing Dwick. You know, 4 years before the record came out. You know, when they were on Molly Marlin and Control. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like that was my upbringing. So for me, it was just again, it was something that was in my DNA. You know, I can't remember where it first happened. It was just always there.
Yeah, you always been a DJ. When did you first start producing, and what was your first placement?
Um, so that's a loaded question. I'll give you the short version. I've made beats, quote unquote, my entire life. You know, like going back to like third, fourth, fifth grade when I was when I started out as a computer pro. Oh, I shouldn't say I started out as a computer. I wrote my first computer program in fourth grade. Right,
Mm-hmm.
computer programming and music programming. There's really no difference. It's all ones and zeros. It's all Logic and that. I'd always been a a tinkerer and a computer programmer, and my dad was a jazz musician and always had Casios and Yamaha keyboards around the house, and I would always use those to make music
Right.
when he wasn't looking. Um, I remember seeing Nelly Hooper, and this this is some nerd a nerd moment, but like I remember seeing Nelly Hooper in the Back to Life video, Soul to Soul video on Video Music Box. And if you remember, there's a shot on stage and he's got a Macintosh with a keyboard next to him. And as a kid, I'm like, wait, what is he doing? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I remember dragging my mom to the mall and being like, I need the computer that allows you to make music. Like I've always made music. I've always been, or I was always a beat maker. I didn't become a producer until the time that what was the record? It was a record I did with Jay Z called Soon You'll Understand,
Mm-hmm.
and we had cut a demo of it, um, and it was literally just a loop. It was a kick snare hi hat sample, and I had an idea to change it and really give it a song structure, and I went and did everything that I thought should happen to the record. But I wasn't sure how to tell him, like, yo, bro, like, so I took this record, changed it, did this, did that, and Hov is a funny dude. He's very nonchalant, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had already been obviously making music for people for a few years, but a lot of times it was just kind of like you hope the record works out. You either they get in the booth and they spit something that's great and you have a great record on your hands, or it's just not really that good and you deal with it. So this is my first time saying I'm going to take it and change it and do this and do that and tell the artist what I think should happen. And I bring up his nonchalantness because when I finally played it for him a couple of days later, he was just like, "Yeah, cool." And I'm like, "So is it good? Is it not good?" And he's like, "Well, I don't pay you to make beats. I pay you to produce. So get to producer." So I always say that for me, that moment was the official change from me just being a beat maker to a producer when I realized that, like, you know I did have what it took, and I was talented enough to actually make music as opposed to just or make songs as opposed to just making beats.
So you just alluded to it as a producer versus a beat maker. So you did find that there's a whole ass difference between
Yeah,
producing records and making beats for records.
1,000%. And that's one thing that I try to inform beat makers on, and it's not from an old head standpoint or I'm better than you standpoint. Because nobody needs to hear that. But just the reality of it is, you can make 1,000 beats. Doesn't mean that you're actually a producer. Like if you didn't take a song from A to Z and bring it and deliver it to the label, what did you produce? You made a beat, and the
Right.
artist got to it, and it might be a great song. But you know what? At that in that capacity, I'm gonna give the artist. If you weren't there for anything creatively, I'm gonna give the artist um, as much, or artist or engineer or whoever. I'm gonna give them as much production credit as I would give the person who made it.
Who just made the basic beat. What was your first major placement?
Um, Mace, Mace, he was doing the Harlem World album.
Okay.
um, that's when that's basically how I got discovered or got myself discovered. Like I positioned myself to.
How did you position yourself for Mace to hear your production?
At the time I was working at a studio called The Cutting Room.
Okay, heard of the cutting room.
Yes. I was an assistant engineer and actually I think my title at the time was general assistant, aka the guy who did everything.
Okay.
So, I was the general assistant there, and what I used to do was, we always put it is, I was Justin Smith, general assistant and assistant studio manager from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. and from 7 p.m. to you know 8 a.m. I was just blazing training. And what I
Right.
would do was after I got off work, I would go into one of the unused studios, play, and work on my music, and leave the door slightly cracked in the hopes that somebody might walk past and hear something. And one day we had a session booked, and it was for Mace. He was sequencing something. I forget what it was. He wasn't recording. He was sequencing
Mm-hmm.
a sampler tape or something. Remember back in the '90s, everybody had sampler tapes,
Right.
and they were sequencing something, and I made sure to have the door cracked so that when somebody walked past, they might, you know, hear something they like. And sure enough, and I used to do that a lot during that era. So sure enough, during this particular May session, somebody walked past, and it was part of his management team. Shout out to the homie Super Sam, still one of my good friends to this day. Super. If you ever hear what is May saying? More money, more problems. Kuda, school me to the game now. I know my duty. Sam was Kuda's part.
Okay.
So it was Kuda and Sam in the next room. And they Sam heard what I was doing, liked it, asked Kuda to come in the room, and they were like, "So who are you? What do you do?" And I'm like, "I just work here," you know. And me and Sam spent about 48 hours straight in that room just putting music together. We bonded and clicked instantly, and that ended up leading to not just my first placement, but my first placement ended up being the first single off the Harlem World album. I really like it,
Mm-hmm.
and you fast forward 2 months later, I'm watching. I'm at my day job, sitting on the couch, in the lobby, watching a record that I made the beat for, premiere on MTV.
Wow. That must have blew your mind right there. How did your whole Rockefeller relationship start?
Also goes back to the cutting room. So, it's the shortest way to put this. So with Rockefeller happened, um, through if anybody remembers, if anybody's ever heard the record Lord Knows with me and Drake and Rick Ross, there's a line, um, I'm paid up. Roberson boost the rate up, or Roberson boost the rate up. It's time they all paid up, something like that. Roberson is G Roberson.
Uh-huh.
G Roberson was a junior A&R at Rockefeller. He was like a low guy in the totem pole. And um, he had an artist named Billy Badgate from Harlem.
I remember Billy Bathgate.
Right. So,
Shout out to Billy.
yes, shout out to Bath. Bath, what up? So, Bath didn't have a demo. What G was doing, because G was handling Bath outside of Rockefeller. And what G would do with Bath was he would take him to labels and just have him ride live. And their whole thing was, there was we don't have a demo, just listen to him run. So um I had a meeting with Dino DeValle, who was the guy who's credited with Discovery Cash Money.
Right.
And what he was the guy who brokered the Universal deal. um, that that brought the guy that basically brought the universe. So there's a meeting that gets orchestrated between me and Dino. I play him a bunch of music. He loves the music. He's like, yo, I'm working on this new Rakim album, which became the 18th Letter album.
Mm.
Working on this new Kid in Cannabis. I'm working on this, that. I think he was trying to do a second Lost Boys album at the time. If I'm not mistaken. And he was like, I'm gonna make you big, 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 big. We're gonna make you the next super producer. I have all these albums that I'm working on, and I love what you've done. Or I love this, this. I love the. He basically loved my beat CD and sold me on a bunch of stuff that never happened. Me and Dino had a great meeting, and I never heard from him. But he had a meeting with G, and G brought in Bathgate. Bathgate didn't have a demo, so Dino expecting to hear a demo and wasn't hearing one. Said, "All right, if you want to run for me, I'll put in a CD of beats that I just got."
And they were yours.
And it was my beat CD. So that happens. G asks Dino, "Whose beats are these?" And this kid Justin works at a studio called the Cutting Room. G starts calling the Cutting Room looking for me. I think it's a prank call, and I'm like, and sometimes I would answer the phones, and I happened to answer the phone when G called. And if you remember an artist by the name of Bruce Hornsby from Bruce Hornsby and the Range, who actually Tupac sampled him for "That's the Way."
Yeah, that's the way it is. Yeah.
Right. So me and Bruce ended up becoming friendly because he used to book the Cutting Room all the time, and
Oh
he
wow.
knew that I was an aspiring producer and beat maker. So he would sometimes call the Cutting Room um, for work related stuff, but he would crack jokes on, right? So like sometimes he'd call and be like, "Hey, this is Bruce Hornsby, Galaxy Records, Crush Groove. I need a who wants a record deal?" So when G calls me, when G calls the studio, he's like, "Hey, I'm looking for a guy named Just. He makes beats." I'm thinking, "Oh, it's Bruce," but he got somebody else to call. "What up, Bruce? All right, bye, whatever."
Right.
And hung up on G twice. The third time he calls back like, "Hey, I was trying to talk to a kid named Just who makes beats. My name is G. I'm from Rockefeller Records. It's Jay Z's label." And I'm like, "Very funny, Bruce. How do you know about Jay Z?" Oh, and then I'm like, "Wait a minute. All right, hold on. What's up?" Like, because I'm starting to realize that because G's like, "No, no, don't hang up. Somebody's already hung up on me twice. This is not a prank call."
Right.
And that's when I realized that it was a real call. And from there, that phone call is literally how my relationship with Rockefeller started.
Wow. Is it true that you didn't talk to Jay-Z for a year, or you weren't allowed to talk to Jay-Z for a year?
No, that was from the Lord Jamar podcast. He rephrased it and made it rare. I never said that I wasn't allowed to talk to him for a year. I said I it it I didn't have the access. There's a difference between not having access and not having access.
Oh, okay. So you were still making music and making beats for him, but
Right.
how did
Well, no, I wasn't making music for him. Like, so at the time,
oh, okay.
around this time, the Cutting Room era, I was working on the Emil album. That was my entry point, was working on Emil. So I was making music for her. Um, I think I had made a beat for the Beanie Siegel album, which featured him in Memphis Bleak. And at the same time, I'm trying to get to Jay, but I just don't have the direct line to Jay. So
Right.
I send my music through G or through hip hop, and I would always get feedback back from or through them. So like I have to give you the tape or give you the CD, and then I have to wait to hear back from you and get the feedback from you. The feedback
Right.
was, the drums aren't good enough. The music isn't good enough. Whatever the sample chop was a little weird. Whatever it was, And when I going back to Bathgate, when I did me and Bath had a record called That's Right, and again, G was handling Bath's project and eventually got him a deal on Virgin. So we did that record. G, because he was also A&Ring a Mills album, and because I was engineering a Mills album, we were able to make that happen. So once um, that record happened and the record got submitted to Jay because Emil is his artist. Jay was like, "Yo, who did this beat?" Oh, just all right, cool. Have him come to the bass line and play me some more stuff, and that's where that relationship started. So it wasn't that I wasn't allowed to talk to him. It was just I didn't have a direct lane until that record happened. Once
Just
that
is there a complete Amel album somewhere in the vaults?
no, it's out. That
Oh, it came out.
her album got released on Sony. It was called All Money Is Legal. Her album you can go to iTunes or Spotify, whatever you stream from. It's out right
How much?
now. I only have officially produced one song, but I associate, or I should say, I quietly co-produced that entire album.
How much of that is Jay-Z's pen?
None,
None of it's all written by Amel.
none, none. Like I've literally seen fights break out. I remember fights breaking out in the room, and I'm not even exaggerating. Physical fisticuffs breaking out when somebody would suggest um, a different rhyme or something that she should change with her rhymes. One of the things that she uh, prided herself on more so than anything else was the fact that she wrote that entire album herself.
Right. With
None,
no.
none of that was Jay's pen. Other artists, be different story. Mill, she wrote her entire album herself.
Oh wow. In your opinion,
Actually, now that I think about it, before that, I think, and I could be wrong, I think the verse on "Do It Again," which was her intro to the world,
right?
I think he already had that verse written and just needed somebody to say it.
Okay. And can I get it?
Or maybe that's actually I think that's what I'm thinking. I think it's "Can I Get It." I think that verse was already written and he just needed somebody to say it. But anything post that first record, she wrote all of it.
I saw an interview you did with my good friend Lord Jamal and Rod Digger, and y'all were talking about beats, people giving you 4 bars or something like that for towards the end of the song. And Digger was saying, nah, she writes her own and that's it. She's not taking any 4 beats from anybody else. And you were saying it doesn't mean that you're a bad artist because you take beats or bars from someone else.
No, it's um. Listen, I'm a relatively I have to use the phrase relative. I'm a relatively younger guy. In the hip hop space who has come in from a very young age. I fully understand where I fully understand the idea of having to write your own rhymes and why that's important. I would never ever discount that. That doesn't mean that I would discount somebody who is widely considered great and has done great things because they had help in the studio. Every great songwriter from every genre in music has had help from somebody.
Right.
Uh, and the thing is like I could list a bunch of people's favorite rappers that I've given 4 bars to, right, or 3 bars to, or 2 bars to. 4 records that they were trying to finish up, 4 records that they were trying to start off. So if that's okay, then where do you draw the line?
I think really changed with Puff. I think Puff really changed it when he started rapping and he just started paying ghostwriters to write for him. And then of course Jay writing for Foxy, Nas,
Right,
Nas writing
but
for
like,
Foxy, Biggie with Kim,
right.
stuff like that.
But ultimately, like there are certain artists that you look at and you're like, all right, like nobody is looking at a Dre or a Puff for their lyricism, right?
Right.
Let's be for real. So who cares?
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, I think hip hop grew up and understood that as a business. And I think a lot of artists would have lasted a lot longer in hip hop with hit records if they would have
And they
lived.
had taken creative direction from their producers or other people that
Right.
that's always been my thing. Like, you know, like other producers that are heralded, as greater than me, have called me like, yo, I need to fix these drums. I need a new kick. I need a new snare. Right.
Right.
I've called some of those same producers like, or I've met some of those same producers and they're like, yo, try these drums. Does that make me less of a producer? No. Does it make them less of a great? No.
It wouldn't that be the equivalent to wouldn't that be the equivalent to Quincy Jones bringing in a songwriter or bringing in Jerry Hay to arrange the horn section?
Well, that's what the example that I always use is I always it's funny that you bring that up. So I always say, you think Quincy Jones is the greatest? And many people by default will say yes because he produced Thriller and The Wall and a bunch of other stuff. And I'm like, you realize Quincy didn't play one instrument on none of those albums you just mentioned.
Right.
He knew who to call.
Yeah.
He knew who to get to arrange the drums. He knew. I mean, I'm sorry, the horns and strings. He knew to bring Rod Temperton in to write lyrics.
Yeah, he knew to bring Greg Phillinganis to play the keyboards.
Right.
He knew to have James Ingram in the studio arranging vocals.
Right.
The same way Chic knew to go get Luther Vandross to arrange their vocals.
Right, or knew to call was it not was it Sandy Patty or Patty Austin?
Patty Austin or Sierra Garrett, Saida Garrett, excuse me.
Right, he knew who to call.
Right.
Ultimately, that's the job of a producer. It doesn't mean that he's not great. That actually was what makes him great, and that's what makes a lot of the artists and producers that we're alluding to great is that they knew who to call. If somebody, there have been multiple times where a producer, like up until I BS you not, one of the greatest producers of all time, any genre, called me less than a month ago because his drums weren't hitting hard. And I'm like, all right, use this drum, use this kick, use this snare. If you need me to program it, I'll program it. Can you program it? Sure, no problem. Oh, no. I'll get 1% or 2% on the record, whatever, but it's not even about that. It's just, that's what makes him a great producer because he knows that one of the things that I do well is drums.
Right.
So he's going to call me the same way that Quincy would have called any of the people that we just mentioned.
Yeah, it's a collaborative effort. What is your best Jay-Z production you think you've ever done?
I don't have a best one. I do have ones that I'm proud of. I mean, it's like asking somebody who has kids, who's your favorite kid? and none of us will ever answer that, even though we might have a favorite kid.
Right, exactly.
We won't answer that. But
most proud. Okay, give me most proud of.
But I would say, like, having made public service announcement without the intention of making it.
That's my favorite. Tell me about that. I think I heard vaguely a story about how that song was made, like at the last possible.
It was literally album. It wasn't even the last minute. The album was done. It was already at the plant. Back when you actually had to make CDs and records. You remember
right?
Setting a master to the plant. The record was already at the plant.
Wow.
Albums are already being pressed. And I was at Battery Studios, which was around the corner from Baseline. Baseline was the main record for the headquarters.
Right.
And we had sent the album to the plant, I don't know, maybe 3 days before. So the wheels was already turning. Stuff was already getting made. And I'm at Battery Studios working on something that was Beanie Siegel and Memphis Bleak. I can't remember what it was. It might have been Hypnotic. And Ken Lewis, an OG of mine, was mixing the record. And a homie of mine named Big Jack was one of my best friends to this day. Comes by and plays me this sample while at the mix session. I'm like, oh, what? So I make the beat in the headphones while Jack is sitting right there and Ken is still mixing the record because I think it was Hypnotic. But I make the beat and I run around. Baseline was literally around the corner from back. I run around the corner and I play it for Lenny S.
Shout out to Lenny.
Yeah, shout out to Lenny. I played for Lenny and hip hop, and I'm like, yo, we have to change the album. And they're like, why? I'm like, play it. They're like, oh. So Jay at the time is doing press. If you remember, the way we used to do it back then, you would have press sessions. So you made an album, you invite the press to come down and listen to it. you know, and the way we did it at baseline was we did it in rotation. So like this day is all the Viacom stations, this hour is all the Viacom stations, this hour is all the MS stations, hour is all Clear Channel or whatever. So he's playing the album for different media outlets without PSA on it. I run into one of those sessions and I'm like, come on. So he comes out in between one of the press sessions for playing the Black Album, and I play him the beat, and he's like, "So what do y'all want me to do?" And it's me and Len, and we're like, you have to rhyme on this, and that means we have to stop the album that's being manufactured." So he's looking at us like, "What?" Like, and in his mind, as he's an artist, he's in I'm done mode. Like,
Right.
I'm not trying to make an album. I'm trying to sell it. You know, we're like, no, you have to. And he was resistant for a little while. Came back and listened to the beat again and was like, all right. So he went back and did it. And the funny thing is this part of the story I've never told before. We were having a conversation about silly rap, right? Like just rap that makes no sense or doesn't really mean anything, but people love it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was telling some of the lower tier artists that we worked with or that were part of the crew, you know, like guys who just hadn't really made it, like, yo, he was basically saying if y'all don't get serious, this silly shit is about to take over. Y'all gotta get serious about y'all shit and get these records out. Basically, he was doing a coach pep talk. And we had a conversation about silly rap that worked. And one of the records that or silly rap that we all love. Because some of the guys were like, silly rap, what does he mean? Like nobody wants to hear that. And we're like, oh yeah, remember? Just let me introduce myself. My name is Humpty.
Right.
Humpty. Just let me introduce myself. Allow me to reintroduce myself.
Oh wow.
So that's where that connection came into play. It was really just a play on the Humpty dance right.
Yeah, and that's a great intro to the record. Now, when you played him the beat for PSA, all the stuff that you personally used your voice to put on that record wasn't on it.
Nah.
When did he hear that? After? Because it sounds like it's when you listen to that record, it sounds like that's how y'all did the record. Like you said your shit, then here comes Jay, and you say your shit again. It's put together so well. It's such a perfect hip hop record.
Nah, so I made the beat, and like I said, I literally rushed over like, you have to rhyme on this right now. Len hears it, and Len's like, oh my God, he has to rhyme on this right now. We do the record, and it wasn't until after he laid his verses that I went back and did it. You know what I will say? Um, if you go back in everybody's family, and you as a person of color might remember this. One of the albums that everybody had as a kid, you're a little bit older than me, but one of the albums that everybody's family had as a kid was the JFK album.
Right.
Album that had JFK on the cover with the brown trim around it.
Yeah.
Put that album on. The first thing they say is fellow Americans. So I had that record and I was like, I've had that record since my mom and my family.
Right. It's in the crate somewhere in the house.
Right. So I remember just playing it and being like, oh, wait a minute. That sounds like an intro. So I just went and kind of did my own riff on that album.
Okay.
You know, and then same thing with the middle. I was really just riffing off of things that I had heard, you know, growing up. But I did all of that after he did his verse. Like basically he was like, all right, y'all want me to rhyme on this, whatever. Cool. Went in the booth, did his verses, and then it was up to us to finish the record.
Wow.
So there was no hook or anything. I went back and laid those pieces. So I wasn't really trying to, it wasn't one of those records that I felt really needed a hook. It just, but we needed something to fill in that space.
Right.
So I just put something in those spaces, got it mixed. I think I might have mixed that by myself in the B room. I don't even know if Guru was on it. Mixed it, just got it out, just to make sure that it made the album in time. Because like I said, there were already albums pressed up at the plant that we had to destroy to replace it with
Wow.
that.
Did your Rockefeller stuff happen before Diplomats, Eminem, Kanye West, Rihanna, Mariah, Eric Sermon? I mean, I could go on, bro. Kendrick Lamar, Beyonce, all of that.
It was all kind of concurrent. You know, one of the things about the way my
Drake, Fab, Breathe, one of my favorite records.
thank you. One of the things about my situation with Rockefeller, the way me and shout out to Mesa, you know, she my old manager, the way we structured the deal was I was never signed to them. Um, you know, a lot of times people will try to sign you when they're trying to track you into something.
Mm-hmm.
Sense. None of that was really necessary. They were the hottest thing in the world. Like when I met them, when I started working with them was as they were rapping Volume 3.
Okay.
You know, Life and Times. You
Right.
know, and they were literally just about to start a Mills album. That's why I worked so much on the Mills album. You don't have, if you're the hottest rap label in the world or the hottest whatever, you don't really got to trap somebody. All you got to do is pay them like they weigh.
Right.
You know, and that's basically what they did. You know, my initial engagements with them, obviously they didn't cut me a check for $500,000 out the gate, but it was, oh, we like what you do. Obviously, we are who we are. Well, you know, you know, we want to hire you to engineer a Mills album. That's how it really started. We want to hire you to engineer a Mills album.
Okay.
And we had this artist, like I mentioned, Bathgate. You know, we have Bath Scale that we're trying. So it started there, and then from there it was, all right, Jay loved the That's Right record, that Mill record that he jumped on.
Mm-hmm.
So now that's happened. Now it's like, okay, we have a full blown P&P with Def Jam. Um, Jay loves that one record that you did, and then what happened was when I went, you know, once once I got in the room with Jay, we hit like 3 or 4 records in 2 days. And I think Jay was just at a point where he's like, all right, round up all the talent. Like we need artists, we need producers, we need this, we need that. I just happened to be the first producer that came in that struck a chord.
Right.
So, you know, once we got a year or two in, once we got to the point where we're working on the Dynasty album, you know, now there's a check for, you know, $200,000, $250,000. I'm 18, 19 years old.
Wow.
You know, like, and all he's doing is saying basically, you know, we want 20 beats from you at, you know, 20 grand a pop. I don't remember the exact numbers, but we want 20 beats from you at 20 grand a pop. And here's the first half for those 20. All you got to do is show up.
Oh shit, bro.
So, but the beauty of that is it was really like a, you know, some people say that they've had a charmed life and they've had a charmed career. I was able to work with arguably the best, most talented click in rap at that time. But I was still able to go do a record with Fab, you know, go
Right.
do it with Mariah, go do a record with, you know, with DMX or JD Kiss, whatever, you know, and for the most part, all of those, everybody was tied together anyway. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it's not like, you know, Mariah and Jay already had a relationship from records they had done previously.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You know, obviously, you know, Fab comes in through Clue and Dura. You
Mm-hmm.
know, part of the reason why Clue got to the space that he eventually got to is because of it's still all connected.
It's all connected one way or the other. What's the difference for you in crafting production for different artists? Say like if you're doing a Dipset record compared, or are there beats that you won't play for Jay-Z that you'll say, or you won't play for T.I. that you'll say, well, this sounds like more like Dipset or the Diplomats?
That was a so early on that was a big source of contention. Like I would have some artists that would get upset So I didn't play them a certain beat. It's because I didn't hear them on it, so I didn't play it for them. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Every situation was a little bit different. I think any as a producer, and anybody who says differently is lying. As a producer, as you're working on a beat before it becomes a song, yes, there's always going to be an artist that you, or there's generally an artist that you hear it up, right? So
Hmm.
there's times where I made a beat where I'm like, I hear M on this, or I hear Drake on this. That's not always the case. Sometimes you're making a beat. Don't get it twisted. Making beats is like exercise. Jordan didn't become Jordan because he didn't go to the gym.
Hmm.
Sam Kobe didn't become Kobe because they didn't go to the gym. Making beats, you still got to go to the gym. So, like for example, Fabulous. Like I didn't make Breathe for Fab, but I didn't make it for anybody, and I had nobody in mind.
Hmm.
That was literally winter break exercise. Like had the sample, went to the studio, and just made a beat over winter break, or made a few beats over winter break, and that was what. So it's a muscle, just like anything else.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
so yes, there are times when you make a beat with somebody in mind. There are also times when you're making it just to make it. And the last thing that I'll say about that is 99% of the time, music finds its way to where it's supposed to be. And if you ask a bunch of producers, they will all be able to tell you stories about beats you made for one person or with one person in mind that ended up going to somebody else and became hit.
That's what I want to know. What record, big record, did you have for some person and the other person who were they? And it became a hit for somebody else that somebody turned down. Somebody like, nah, this
Yeah.
ain't for me.
There's a whole list of them. I'll make it quick.
All right, give me one, Just.
I'm gonna give you 20. No, I'm fucking. Oh boy was originally played for Memphis Bleak.
Wow.
Pump It Up was for Beanie Siegel and Freeway.
Wow.
That's why I said that there's a lot of them.
Right.
Can't Let You Go by Fab and Little Mo was also from Memphis Bleak. Um, Girls, Girls, Girls was for Ghostface. I can go on and on all day.
Oh my God. Did he hear it?
No, I made it with him in mind, but it's actually how me and Ghost ended up developing a relationship was because I didn't have we had mutual people, but I didn't have a direct lane to Ghost.
Okay.
So when we met years later, you know, um, we were in my studio, and I was telling him about that, and he was like, "Yo, son, I knew it. The second I heard it, I knew I was supposed to rhyme on that." So that's actually how we started our relationship and our friendship.
Right. That's now that you say it, I think about it. That sounds like Ghostface,
Yeah,
man.
it was funny. It was made for him.
Wow. I understand that you're a big collector of things. Are you a
Yeah.
sneakerhead or are you just a collector of everything?
No.
I'm not I used to be just, but I'm not like I am anymore because I've seen the way sneakers are going. I collected sneakers to wear them because I've just wanted to be I wanted to be fly. And
Exactly.
Jesse Itzler invited me to a Yankee game, and Jay was there, and we were sitting next to each other. He looked at my feet and asked me what I had on, and I had on a pair of Hayes Dunks.
I've
And
heard the story before.
I was like, you ain't got
You had on
these,
the
and you
lows
ain't
or the
have
highs? You had on the highs or the lows?
had the highs on.
Hold on.
Please don't tell me you got a fresh pair of Hayes Dunk highs. Just Blaze is about to pull out a fresh pair of Hayes Dunk high
I
tops.
wore these to walk the dogs this morning.
Yes, sir. Oh my God, bro. That's it. That's the sneaker that made me become a sneakerhead because Jay-Z
Right.
did not have that sneaker. And I'm like, this nigga got made back outside. I gotta walk 8 blocks to get my car out the garage, but I
Right.
got sneakers that he don't
And
have.
he
I'm
don't got
going right.
right.
I'm rocking. I'm going crazy right now.
I have the Hayes unbranded ones and the branded ones.
Wow.
He actually gave me the Hayes gave me those himself. When he opened up his new gallery in Brooklyn, he had just done the Hayes dunk, and I DJ'd the opening, and I didn't charge him. I was just like, bro, I'm just happy to meet you. Like,
Right.
it's history. You know what I mean? Like we're just
Absolutely.
legacy of what you've done. So at the end of the night, he just went into his office, came back out with 2 pairs. Like boom, there you go. But yes, I do get it. I think from if I had to trace it back, I get it from my mom. I am a collector by nature. I have slowed down a lot. And when I say a collector by nature, I don't mean just sneakers. But yes, I do. I have collected a lot of sneakers. I have collected a lot of streetwear and clothing. I have collected a lot of BMX bikes, vintage music equipment. Basically, what I eventually realized was I was collecting everything that my mom couldn't afford as in my childhood.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like me. What is one of your most precious pieces of hip hop memorabilia?
Hmm.
Oh, he's off again. Just Blaze is about to show us one of his most precious pieces of hip hop memorabilia.
I have a lot, and
I know you do, bro.
I wasn't prepared.
I did my homework before this interview.
I wasn't prepared to answer this. But if you've ever seen the back of the first Run DMC album cover,
that's the box?
Yes.
Wow. I had that box, bro. I bought that box off Jamaica Avenue with my money. Oh my God. Brain blown.
I won't say I don't know if that person wants their business out there, so I won't say whose it is.
Okay, SP 1200.
This was used for a couple of very seminal albums that we all know and love.
Wow. Give me one album that was used for.
If I did that, I would put the person's business out.
Okay, all right. I don't want to throw nobody under the bus.
No, it's not even about throwing anybody under the bus. Sometimes people just might not want certain things traced, you know.
Right.
You know, I had. Hey, chill out.
I'm surprised my puppy ain't barking, bro.
You know, they just woke up. They heard me pulling out stuff out the closet. But yeah, no. In general, I mean, I have a lot of records that were like the actual records used for certain outside of my own songs, but like the record that such and such used to sample that went on to make this record. I have a lot of that.
You're a great digger then.
Yeah, you know, and then also one of the things that I've been collecting lately, and I tease the guys with is press pictures, like somebody's press picture from like 1993 that they haven't seen. They hope that nobody has seen.
8x10 glossies.
Yes, exactly.
I still got a lot of those myself, bro. That people
right, and I'll hit them with those. Like, remember, like I the last person I hit, I think, chill out, was Clark Kent. There was a press pic of there was a Dana Dane press pic, and it was him and Dane together.
Wow.
He used to be Dane's DJ.
Yeah.
So Clark hadn't seen that picture since back then. And I said to him, remember when you wore these?
I said before you came on, I said Grammy Award winner. How many Grammys do you have and for what?
I don't even know. It's interesting. I'm qualified, or I have a ton of records that have won Grammys.
Right.
And they used to send me certificates, and I never used to hold on to it. Or that, you know, there was something like the mailing stuff, like, you know, to be able to collect your award or whatever. And I never did. And that's one of the things that my mom got.
Really, mother should whoop your ass for that.
No, my mom got really vigilant about. Like, she started calling the Academy herself, and I'm like, Mom, I'm a governor. Like, you can't just be calling them. She's like, why can't I?
Can she still get them? Can you still get your actual awards? I
mean, yeah. You can.
You work hard. You deserve it, bro.
To be honest, it was just, again, going back to what I said when we first started. It was never something that I didn't do it for the awards or for the accolades. So, like, for me, being able to take my mom to the Grammys,
right?
You know, and her finally, you know, being able to see Mick Jagger or sit next to Mick Jagger, you know, as a woman who grew up in the 50s and 60s, to me, that was dope. That was the award. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think what it was for me personally, every time that I was up for my biggest awards, we lost, and it was for obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I kind of lost interest in that. Like, for example, when Usher's Confessions was up for Album of the Year, and we lost to Ray Charles. I mean, I think he had just passed.
Right. So posthumous award. You knew where it was from. What song did you do on Confessions?
Throwback.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Warwick Center. So you understand why Ray Charles has to get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the same time, you're like,
it's an incredible album, though.
Come on, son. So yeah, it's just something. Again, it's just something that I never really, like. There are still awards to this day, or plaques to this day that as many plaques as I do have and awards as I do have, there's a ton that I don't. It was never something that I really did it for, but I am appreciative of them when they come, when they show up.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Them plaques still mean a whole lot to you. You've done a lot of DJing on tours too. I've seen you on a few Jay-Z tours. You didn't do the Best of Both Worlds, did you, Jazz?
I did.
Did you do New York?
I was about to say, I think I did New York.
Like, when the shit hit the fan?
No, I was there. So that's what I was going to say. I did, during the Fade to Black show, I want to say he came out and they did a few records. I think I want to say they were all dressed in white. Did that. In terms of the actual Best of Both Worlds tour, when he got hit with the mace and things went sideways.
Yeah.
I did not do that, but I was there.
Okay.
Like that was the thing. Like Jay would just think about, or Jay would, you might have made sense for this tour. You might have made sense for this tour, or maybe I wasn't available for this one or whatever. So there was this weird thing where people would be like, "Oh, Justin's DJ. Do they have beef?" And it's like, no, I'm busy doing X, Y, and Z. So. He got whoever he got, but I was right there, in the audience or right there backstage.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember that show. I did not DJ that show when that happened, but that was quite a night.
Maybe at the time when you're not on tour with Jay, you scoring video games and stuff like that. Are you a video game player yourself, or do you just enjoy scoring and doing music?
No, I'm an active, not as active as I used to be, but I'm still an active gamer. I mean. I'm a kid that grew up in the 80s. We grew up with Atari and Nintendo and Sega.
So what's your game? What game you think you're god at?
Call of Duty, Modern Warfare. Cold War, not so much, but Modern Warfare, you can come see me. In fact, I will give you my Activision. I will give you my Activision ID. Anybody who'd like to come see me, please do.
That sounds like a challenge to the people out there. I'm the guy that has all the video game systems because of my son that can't play for shit. I always get them and I just don't play. I don't play video games, bro.
Right. No, and it's not for everybody, but you know what? For me, people will, like, I'm a recreational DJ, right? Like, I'm not a real DJ. I will never be a DJ Scratch. I will never be an H.
Oh yeah, that's me. I still got it set in the house. I've been DJing since I was 13 years old. That was really my introduction to
right. But for me, it's always been a recreational thing. It's been a backup to what I really do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's that coordination. Like people will see a clip of me playing Call of Duty, and I might go like, this won't mean anything to you, but like I might jump on multiplayer and go 105, meaning I killed 100 people and only died 5 times.
Right.
And they're like, how? You're 40 plus. How are you doing this? And I'm like, it's all the same thing. It's the buttons, the handwork, all the hand-eye coordination,
right.
Like production and DJing definitely plays a part. There's a lot of producers and DJs on there. We kind of like quietly play with each other, in groups online. And when I say the majority of them bust people's ass, I really think it's because of the hand-eye coordination they have as DJs and producers.
Give me one person you want to work with you haven't worked with yet. One person.
I get asked that all the time, and
I have to because you're one of the greatest.
No, I'm saying, but
I have to ask that question.
I honestly don't have an answer for that. I wish I could have worked. What I wish I could have had was the opportunity to have Michael Jackson and James Brown the same room for them.
That would have been amazing. I had James Brown for a week on your MTV Raps, bro.
What?
Yeah.
A whole week?
Yeah, he did a week worth of shows with us. Your MTV Raps.
What year was this?
Damn, I can't remember the year, but you can find it. It's out there.
Yeah, no, I gotta look that up. I was just asking what year it was because we didn't have cable. We didn't go up with a lot of money, so I didn't. Cable was a Christmas present, the Christmas of '89.
Yeah, that's the year we
I called it
started.
Christmas of '90.
And
So
we
we
weren't,
didn't.
and I don't think we were on a lot of in a lot of black neighborhoods at that time. But we had James on for a week, brother, a whole ass week of James Brown.
That's amazing. But yeah, I think people. Like I said, I get asked that often.
Uh-huh.
I think for me, it's a cross between having Michael Jackson and James Brown.
Yeah, incredible, man. Incredible 20 plus years so far. I know you got a lot more stuff going on, brother.
Yes, we do.
What's cracking for you right now? You ready to start scoring films, feature films?
There are conversations about a few films.
Yes, please.
There are active conversations. What the biggest thing that I am involved in is a video game studio called Brass Lion Entertainment. Um, this is the thing that I'm actually the most proud of right now. There's only but so much I can say about it legally, but it is the first video game studio that is making AAA titles. AAA meaning like it's not some shit for your iPhone or your Android. It's real games owned by Black and brown people. Wow. A woman is the CEO. It's the first time that we've had something like that in the gaming space. But my official title that I've taken on is, I think, the creative director of music and culture. I've basically just been the cool guy out of all the partners. That's my official title now. I was like, dude, I just can't just keep saying I'm part of it. I need a title, right? But it's they are in the midst of making something great. I'm happy to be a founding part of the company. I can't talk about the main things that they're doing, but what I can talk about is I can't talk about the biggest things that we're doing, rather. What I can talk about is a podcast that is coming out called Corner Wolves. Corner Wolves was the first IP and video game idea that we came up with.
Mm-hmm.
And before we got a deal for a game, we got a deal for it to be a podcast and media property with Ron Howard's production company.
Oh, shit.
They saw the idea and were like, yo, we want to move on this. So, so that's in the midst of the podcast for that is in the midst of being recorded right now. What I mean by the podcast is the game is in development as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have a bunch of characters that are in this game. We're using a serialized podcast as a method of introducing all the cast and characters that will be in the game. So by the time the game comes out, 3-4 years from now, if you listen to the podcast, you know who this person is, you know who that person is.
Right.
And the podcast is, I don't know what they have announced and what they haven't announced yet, so I can only say so much. It's set in Harlem in 1996.
Okay.
Musically and aesthetically, it's as authentic as it can get for something that takes place during that time. And we have a bunch of voices that you will appreciate if you were around Uptown in 1996.
Okay.
Playing roles in the podcast. That's going to lead to a game as well. But we also have a whole other game that we are actively in development with. That is going to blow people's mind when it not just when it comes out, but when it gets announced, it's going to blow people's mind. If you go to my Twitter, you will see the first pinned tweet is a hiring announcement because we are actively hiring. Like, this is not BS. This is a full-blown, well-funded company. Like, we're not playing.
Well, if y'all need voice people, man, I have one of the most distinctive voices.
Oh, we know. You're already on our short list, Ed.
Well, thank you, brother.
Why do you think I'm here having this conversation with you?
Thank you, Just.
No doubt.
I'm gonna let you go, bro. It's my wife's birthday, and I gotta take her out. And
happy and blessed birthday to her.
Yeah, you heard that, babe?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
She said thank you, brother.
In love. Congrats.
And I'll take it. We'll be in touch on that other project, man. Love you and continued success to you, Just.
Likewise, love, big bro. And please, actually, I know we're in touch with DM, but I'll get your number from what's her name?
From Krista.
Yes,
My brother. Okay, do that.
All right, brother. Love.
Just Blaze. Come on,
Happy
son.
birthday.
The podcast.
My bad. What you say?
I said I was just talking to my wife, brother. I love you, man.
Oh, love you too, man. Happy
Later,
birthday
brother.
again. Salute.
Okay.